everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I've got a quick turnaround here between Toledo Bend and my next tournament on Santee Cooper, a place I've never been to. I'm really excited to get there, but I think our timing's off a little bit based on the weather that so far has happened. It does not look like we're going to be a straight up spawn tournament. I think we're going to be very much pre-spawn. And from that standpoint, we're going to have a lot of fish in various places. It is a power fishing mecca. And the big question right now is going to be, what are going to be the techniques and the patterns that I think perform well? You know, generally speaking, most of the tournaments that we've seen at a national level that have been there have been in and around the spawn. So a lot of your shallow water pockets and bays and spawning areas are the prime targets. And with that, you have traditional power fishing techniques like your vibrating jigs and spinner baits and some frogs. And then you have some traditional spawning finesse tactics like a wacky rig or a drop shot that can be a major player. Now, having said that, we are definitely seeing the tides turn in today's fishing world. So the big question I have is, are we going to see forward-facing sonar dominate Santee Cooper the same way we've seen it dominate most other tournaments? And it's a question that I'm not sure I can say without a doubt it will be the winning pattern, but I do think that that potential exists. When you're talking about a lot of fish that are in a pre-spawn phase, I think there's going to be a lot of fish that are out deeper and not quite up in those shallow areas yet. Not to say you can't use forward-facing sonar when fishing shallow, but when the fish are up there, it offers you a lot more opportunity to do other things. And it takes away some of the dominance of forward-facing sonar. So having a tournament that's going to be very much pre-spawn and a lot of fish still in wintering phases, I do think the potential is there for somebody really to get on them good offshore and find them around bait or in drains or ditches, a lot like we've seen so far in some of the Texas lakes. The one thing I will say is I don't personally recall there being a tournament on Santee Cooper that was really dominated by offshore fishing. Now, whether that was because forward-facing sonar really hadn't unlocked that lake yet, which the professional tournament circuits are pretty good at doing in terms of like exposing how you can fish those offshore lakes. So whether that exists or not remains to be seen. I do think it does exist. And I think you're going to see some of that occur to the point where that could dominate this event again. Would not surprise me at all. Now, I will say one thing that's somewhat working against that is they've had a lot of rain and the lakes are supposed to be dirty. And when I pull up the Deep Dive app and go through the water clarity of both Lake Marion as well as Lake Moultrie, you can definitely see over the last 30 days a lot of mud come through that system. And it's really showing it to be very, very dirty right now. Dirty water is kind of an equalizer of forward-facing sonar. Does not mean you can't catch them with it, but what it does do is it really makes the accuracy of the cast and the presentation of the cast that much more important. It takes away some of those easy fish that see your bait from 5 feet away and come and eat it. So if this dirty water holds up, as we're seeing in the Deep Dive app, I do think there's potential where it may not be dominated by forward-facing sonar. We may see some of your traditional power fishing techniques really come to play. So, having said that, I've got my rods here, and one thing that's kind of nice is I didn't have to do a whole lot of re-rigging from Toledo Bend to Santee Cooper, because a lot of the same baits I think could be big players from a power fishing standpoint and an offshore standpoint. So, one thing that Santee Cooper does have at times is some pretty good shallow vegetation that tops out and creates a good opportunity for some punching. So I do have a very heavy weight. This is a 2-ounce tungsten weight with a Berkley Pit Boss, heavy braided line, a big punching setup. That could be something that comes into play here. So I will be doing that. There, like I mentioned, a lot of your vibrating jigs. So I've got here a Berkley slobber knocker with a power stinger on the back. I do really like to throw the slobber knocker around wood. And cypress trees are all over the place in Santee Cooper, and all of their little knees and knobs and root systems really, do not snag up the slobber knocker at all. So I like to fish the slobber knocker in terms of vibrating jigs more around wood. I will also have a jackhammer though rigged up, because from what I hear, there is a lot more hydrilla on the lake than there's been in the past. But a vibrating jig, one of the best pre-spawn baits you can throw. And you can fish it both deeper and shallow. So that's something I'm gonna have rigged up for sure. Along those same lines, the same exact XRK 50 that I had rigged up for Toledo Bend. Didn't catch a dang thing on it at Toledo Bend, but I'm gonna be throwing it here as well. I think that could be a player. I'm also gonna have the big old rumbler blade, this guy rigged up. You probably saw the video I released recently on this, but this is gonna be the same bait that I did throw around a little bit on Toledo Bend. And I'm gonna be throwing it around some of those shallow cypress trees on Santee Cooper. Another good bait for that position is gonna be this guy right here. This is a Strike King hybrid hunter. Again, I feel like we're talking about a lot of the fishing that could take place if the fish are up a little bit more is going to be in that 4 foot of water or less. So your shallow run cranks, vibrating jigs, spinner baits, traditional power fishing tactics could be really good. I've got another Pit Boss rigged up with a 3/4 ounce tungsten weight for a little bit thinner matted vegetation. I've got the old Core Tackle swim jig. This guy, if I get into some areas where maybe you got some dollar pads, some scattered hydrilla, you're just kind of covering water, making a lot of casts, trying to find those areas that maybe a group of fish has moved up into. You got to have a swim jig in that situation. I've got an Ozark rig, just the hook itself, but I can throw on a max scent creature hog on that, work that around some of the cypress trees, get it to really glide through those knees. I've got, and then some of your forward-facing sonar type stuff I've got here. This is one of the baits I caught them at Toledo Bend on. It's just the Core Tackle hover rig, and I've got it on a 4-inch shad, Kitech shad impact. So I'll have that. And then a wacky rig as well, which I do not have here. It's in the basement right now, but I'm going to keep it pretty simple. Like, I'm going to keep it pretty straightforward, see what happens. I personally don't know what I'm going to do yet. I want to get to the lake and see what the lake looks like and get a feel for it. I'll probably spend the first day pretty similar to what I did at Toledo Bend. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between offshore and shallow and just get a feel for what stage the fish are in. With this format, if you find a place that the buck bass have moved up into, not a terrible thing. I think this could be a tournament where you 1.5 pounds them to death. Our minimum size for this lake is going to be 1.5 pounds. And I do think there's potential you could find areas where you could catch 3 or 4 buck bass to, say, every female. And those 1.5 to 2.5 pound males, would equal the same as catching a 4-pound female or better. So from that standpoint, I do think this could be one where you see that shallow water deal really come to play, where somebody actually takes advantage of smaller males than kind of chasing the bigger females. So we'll see. I'm excited to get there, excited to break it down, spent a lot of time looking at the maps, and it all kind of looks the same. But it looks like a fun place to fish. It looks like a place that is right up my alley. So we'll see what happens. I will definitely keep you guys updated. I'll be doing a bunch more videos for you. At this point, I'm going to finish getting these rods all rigged up, so I've got everything prepped, so when I get there, I can worry about fishing. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate all of you. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.